Researchers studied Holocaust survivors decades after the war ended. They found something that nobody expected. Many of them reported that the experience, the worst thing imaginable, had made them, in some measurable way, stronger, more grateful, more clear about what mattered, more alive to the beauty of ordinary things, not all of them, not easily, not without enormous cost, but enough of them that scientists had to create a new term for what they were observing. They called it post-traumatic growth. And the question that term raises is the one we are going to sit with today. Not why do we suffer, but what does suffering actually do to us? And whether the most painful seasons of your life might be, quietly, the most important ones. You already know what I am talking about. There was a version of you before something broke. A relationship that ended and took your identity with it. A failure so public and so complete that you did not know how to look people in the eye. A loss that rewired the way you move through rooms, an illness, a betrayal, a period so dark that you are not entirely sure how you got through it. And here is the strange thing: when you look back at that time, honestly, not sentimentally, you notice something uncomfortable. You are not the same person who walked into it. The person who came out the other side knows things the earlier version of you did not know, feels things more deeply, wastes less time on things that do not matter. You would not wish it on anyone. You would not choose to go back, but you cannot honestly say it left you smaller. Most people, when they are in the middle of pain, do one of two things. They try to escape it as fast as possible, which is understandable and sometimes necessary. Or they get stuck in it. They build a home in the grief, in the bitterness, in the story of what was done to them. What almost nobody does, what almost nobody is taught to do, is to ask what the pain is trying to make of them. That is the question philosophy has been asking for 2,500 years, and the answers it has found are more useful than almost anything else you will encounter today. The first philosopher we need to meet is Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche was a 19th-century German philosopher who spent most of his adult life in physical agony. Migraines so severe they left him bedridden for days, failing eyesight, vomiting, exhaustion. He wrote some of the most powerful philosophy in history while barely able to hold a pen. And out of that personal experience, not just theory but lived suffering, he wrote one of the most quoted and most misunderstood lines in all of philosophy. He wrote, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." People put this on gym posters, on motivational Instagram accounts. They treat it as a simple declaration of resilience. It is not simple. Nietzsche was saying something much more precise. He was saying that suffering, when you do not run from it, when you go into it with your eyes open and refuse to be destroyed by it, does not just leave you unchanged. It restructures you. It forces you to develop capacities you did not have before, patience you did not need before the loss, courage you did not need before the failure, clarity you did not need before the collapse. The key word is when you do not run from it. Nietzsche is not saying all suffering automatically makes you stronger. He is saying that the person who chooses to face their pain rather than avoid it has access to a kind of growth that comfort can never produce. He called this the will to power. Not power over other people, power over yourself. The drive to become more than you currently are by pushing through what is currently too hard for you. He believed most people lived what he called a comfortable mediocrity. Safe, undisturbed, and therefore permanently small. The people who became something exceptional in Nietzsche's view were not the people who avoided difficulty. They were the people who went toward it, who used it. Now here is where it gets even more interesting. The Stoics, a school of philosophy founded in ancient Greece around 300 BC, arrived at almost the same insight from a completely different direction. Marcus Aurelius was the emperor of Rome, the most powerful man in the world. And he spent 20 years fighting wars he did not want to fight, governing an empire that kept generating new crises, watching his children die, and managing a body that was perpetually ill. Every morning he wrote in a private journal, the book we now call the Meditations, which he never intended anyone to read. He was not performing wisdom for an audience. He was talking himself through the practice of actually living it. He wrote this: "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Read that slowly. He is saying that the obstacle is not separate from the path. The obstacle is the path. The difficulty you are facing right now is not a detour from your life. It is your life. And how you meet it is who you are becoming. The Stoics had a practice they called amor fati. It is Latin for love of fate. The idea was not passive acceptance, not lying down and saying whatever happens, happens. It was active embrace. It was choosing to treat everything that happens to you, including the worst things, as material, as fuel, as the exact raw material your character needs to develop the next thing it is supposed to develop. Marcus Aurelius lost a child and kept governing, kept writing, kept asking what the situation required of him. That is not suppression. That is not denial. That is a man who had decided that his suffering was not going to be wasted. Buddhism gives us the third angle, and it is the most counterintuitive of the three. The Buddha taught that suffering is not an accident. It is not a punishment. It is not evidence that something has gone wrong with your life. Suffering, in Buddhist thought, is the fundamental condition of human existence. The Pali word is dukkha. It is usually translated as suffering, but a more accurate translation might be unsatisfactoriness. The sense that things are always slightly off, that nothing is quite enough, that everything you love will eventually be taken from you. The Buddha said, "Life is dukkha." That sounds bleak. It is not, because what comes next is the most important part. He said the cause of dukkha is clinging. We suffer not simply because painful things happen, but because we cling to people, to outcomes, to the version of our life we had planned, to the idea of who we thought we were. When something breaks that we were clinging to, we suffer. And in that suffering, if we are willing to see it clearly rather than simply endure it, there is an invitation. The invitation to release the grip, to discover that the thing we thought we could not live without was not the foundation of our life. It was a story we were telling. Pain, in Buddhist thought, is not the problem. Resistance to pain is the problem. And when you stop resisting and start observing, when you sit with the suffering instead of fleeing from it, something shifts. Not the pain itself, your relationship to it. Now here is what neuroscience has found. Psychologists Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun spent decades studying people who had survived severe trauma, cancer diagnoses, the death of a child, near-fatal accidents, war. They identified 5 consistent areas where people reported genuine growth after major suffering: personal strength, a new sense of what they were actually capable of; new possibilities, lives that opened in directions they could not have imagined before; relating to others, a deeper, less defended capacity for connection; appreciation for life, not in a shallow way, but a fundamental shift in what they noticed and valued; and spiritual or existential change, a more serious engagement with the deepest questions about what life is for. They called this post-traumatic growth, and it is distinct from simply resilience, the ability to bounce back to where you were. Post-traumatic growth means being transformed into something you were not before, growing beyond your previous self. Crucially, they found that this growth did not come from the trauma itself. It came from the struggle with the trauma. People who were overwhelmed and did not engage with what had happened to them did not show this growth. People who went into the experience, who allowed themselves to be broken open by it, who asked the questions it was forcing on them, did. The pain is not the teacher. The engagement with the pain is the teacher. So how do you actually use this? Not in theory, today, this week. The first practice is what I call the honest inventory. Take the hardest thing you have been through, not the most recent thing, the one that changed you most. Sit with it for 20 minutes and write 3 headings: what I lost, what I learned, and what I became. Not to make peace with it artificially, just to see it clearly. Most people have never done this. They have carried the experience for years without ever auditing what it actually contained. The second practice comes directly from the Stoics. It is called the view from above. When you are in a painful situation right now, a conflict, a failure, an anxiety, write 1 paragraph describing it as if you are a historian from 50 years in the future looking back. Not to minimize it, to change the angle. Suffering in the present feels total, final, permanent. Suffering seen from 50 years away almost always looks like the beginning of something. Write from that perspective. Watch what changes. The third practice is the Buddhist one. It is the simplest and the hardest. The next time something painful arises, an uncomfortable emotion, a difficult conversation, a moment of grief or fear, instead of immediately doing something about it, wait 3 minutes. Just observe it, name it. Say internally, there is grief here or there is fear here. Notice where it lives in your body. Do not analyze it. Just watch it the way you would watch weather passing through a window. You are not the storm. You are the one who notices the storm. 3 minutes of this will teach you more about your relationship to pain than almost anything else. Here is what I want you to carry with you. You have already survived things that the earlier version of you was not sure you could survive. There were nights that felt like they would not end. There were mornings when getting up felt like a choice you had to make by force. There were moments when you looked in the mirror and barely recognized the person looking back. And yet, you are here, watching this, still asking the questions, still wanting to understand. Nietzsche was broken by illness and kept writing. Marcus Aurelius lost everything he loved and kept governing. The Buddha sat under a tree with the full weight of human suffering and did not move until he understood it. They are not telling you that pain is good. They are telling you that pain, met honestly, met with open eyes and an unwillingness to be permanently defined by it, does something to a person that nothing else can do. It finds the things in you that are real. Everything that suffering burns away was always temporary. What remains is you, the actual you, stripped of pretension, stripped of the comfortable stories, stripped of the person you were performing before life got serious. That person, the one standing in the rubble of something, is not broken. That person is being built. I see you in next one.